The cursor blinked steadily on Carlo Acutis' computer screen at 3:17 a.m., but the 15-year-old wasn't typing. His fingers hovered motionless above the keyboard as something impossible filled his monitor, an image that shouldn't exist. The photograph showed a woman in blue robes standing in his bedroom, taken from an angle that revealed no photographer present. Carlo's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't the first time his computer had displayed images he never downloaded, never created, never searched for. His mother Antonia would later tell investigators that she heard whispered conversations coming from Carlo's room during these late-night sessions. Not the usual sounds of a teenager gaming or chatting with friends online, but something different, reverent, careful, like someone speaking to royalty. When she pressed her ear to his door, she could only make out Carlo's voice, responding to questions she couldn't hear. The pauses between his words suggested he was listening intently to someone speaking back. The Acutis family kept these nocturnal encounters secret for years, even after Carlo's death. They feared ridicule, feared misunderstanding, feared that sharing such extraordinary claims might overshadow the beautiful simplicity of their son's faith. But the evidence was undeniable. Carlo's computer contained thousands of images that appeared spontaneously, photographs of Eucharistic miracles from centuries past, detailed close-ups of sacred relics, pictures of Marian apparition sites taken from impossible vantage points. Each image appeared during these midnight sessions when Carlo sat transfixed before his glowing screen. Technology experts who later examined Carlo's hard drives couldn't explain the anomalies. The images contained metadata suggesting they were captured by cameras that didn't exist, uploaded from IP addresses that traced to geographic coordinates in the middle of oceans. Some files bore timestamps from dates before Carlo was born, yet forensic analysis proved they were created on his specific computer. The Church quietly classified these findings, understanding that the modern world wasn't ready for such revelations about how heaven might communicate through fiber optic cables. Carlo's famous website documenting Eucharistic miracles wasn't born from academic research or religious duty. It came from divine downloads that filled his mind during Massachusetts. Each morning after receiving communion, information would flood his consciousness like data streams. Names of obscure saints, locations of forgotten miracles, scientific details about inexplicable phenomena that occurred centuries before modern documentation. His parents watched in amazement as their son would rush home from church and begin typing with supernatural speed and accuracy. The website became Carlo's greatest earthly achievement, but few understood its true origin. He wasn't researching these miracles through books or internet searches. The information was being transmitted directly to his spirit during his most sacred moments. Fellow parishioners noticed how Carlo would sometimes pause during the Eucharistic prayer, his eyes closed, his lips moving silently as if taking dictation. His notebook, always present during Mass, filled with coordinates, dates, and details that he would later verify through painstaking research. What troubled church historians wasn't Carlo's accuracy. It was his access to information that existed nowhere in public records. He documented miracles that were known only to Vatican archives, sealed testimonies that hadn't been digitized, witness accounts that survived only in handwritten manuscripts locked away in monastery libraries. When pressed about his sources, Carlo would simply smile and mention that he had help from above. His confessor later revealed that Carlo described receiving these revelations as Mary's homework assignments. The pattern became undeniable to those who watched closely. Carlo would attend Mass, return home in what seemed like a trance, and produce content that required months of scholarly research to verify. His typing during these sessions was rhythmic, almost mechanical, as if he was transcribing rather than composing. His younger sister Francesca remembered how his fingers would move across the keyboard even when his eyes were closed, producing perfect text without errors or corrections. The family began to understand they were witnessing something far beyond typical teenage dedication. Hidden in Carlo's personal journals, which the Church immediately sealed after his death, were predictions about Mary's role in the digital age that now seemed prophetically accurate. Written in his careful handwriting between prayers and school assignments, these entries described how the Mother of God would use technology to reach souls in the 21st century. Carlo wrote about young people receiving visions through screens, about miraculous healing stories spreading through social media, about a generation that would encounter the sacred through pixels and code. His most startling prediction, dated just 6 months before his death, described how his own story would inspire digital missionaries worldwide. He wrote about teenagers who would follow his example, using technology to spread devotion to the Eucharist and Mary. These young people would experience supernatural assistance in their online evangelization, receiving divine inspiration for their content and witnessing miraculous responses to their digital apostolate. Carlo seemed to know he was pioneering a new form of sainthood for the Internet age. The journal entries reveal Carlo's understanding that his illness and death were perfectly timed within God's plan. He wrote about needing to complete his earthly mission quickly because she has bigger plans for me afterward. His references to Mary became increasingly mystical in his final months, describing conversations where she showed him glimpses of future souls he would touch through his posthumous influence. Carlo understood he was being prepared not just for heaven, but for a unique form of heavenly ministry. Vatican investigators found detailed sketches in Carlo's journals depicting young people around the world sitting before computers, with rays of light streaming from their screens toward their hearts. Above these figures, Carlo consistently drew a woman in blue robes, her hands extended as if blessing their digital work. These drawings, created years before social media evangelization became a recognized phenomenon, now serve as an uncannily accurate preview of the global youth movement that emerged following Carlo's beatification. Carlo's approach to the Rosary transformed this ancient prayer for the digital generation, though he accomplished this revolution so quietly that few recognized its significance at the time. He developed meditation techniques that incorporated his technological skills, creating visual aids and digital presentations that made the mysteries of the Rosary vivid for young minds accustomed to screens and stimulation. His PowerPoint presentations of the Rosary mysteries, shared freely online, became templates that youth ministers worldwide adapted and distributed. But the real miracle wasn't in his creative presentations, it was in the supernatural phenomena that accompanied his personal Rosary practice. Fellow students at his school reported seeing a faint blue light surrounding Carlo during the school Rosary recitation, though photographs never captured this luminescence. His religion teacher noted that Carlo's concentration during prayer was so intense that he seemed to enter another realm entirely, his breathing becoming shallow and his face radiating an inexplicable peace. The Rosary beads Carlo used daily began exhibiting unusual properties in his final year. The metal crucifix grew warm to the touch even in cold weather, and the beads themselves seemed to glow faintly when he prayed in darkened rooms. His mother preserved these beads after his death, and they continue to demonstrate these properties today. Church investigators documented the phenomenon but classified their findings, understanding that such reports might be dismissed as wishful thinking rather than recognized as authentic mystical experiences. Carlo's influence on youth Rosary devotion extended far beyond his immediate circle. Young people who learned of his prayer methods through his online presence began reporting their own extraordinary experiences. Teenagers worldwide started sharing testimonies of receiving answers to prayers, experiencing healing, and encountering Mary's presence during Rosary recitation that followed Carlo's techniques. Youth groups that adopted his digital approaches to the Rosary witnessed remarkable conversions and renewed faith among their members, creating a quiet revolution in Catholic youth ministry. In Carlo's final days, as leukemia ravaged his teenage body, his relationship with Mary intensified to levels that astounded his medical team and family. Despite his weakness, he insisted on maintaining his computer work, claiming he had received urgent assignments that couldn't wait. His hospital room became a hub of mysterious digital activity, with his laptop displaying images and texts that family members couldn't explain. His mother later testified that Carlo seemed to be receiving final instructions for a mission that would begin after his death. The medical staff at San Gerardo Hospital witnessed phenomena they couldn't categorize in any textbook. Carlo's room frequently filled with the scent of roses, though no flowers were present. His computer screen would sometimes brighten independently of its settings, casting an unusual blue light that seemed to comfort other young patients who visited him. Nurses reported feeling an overwhelming sense of peace when entering his room, and several staff members experienced profound spiritual moments during their shifts caring for him. On his deathbed, Carlo spoke with startling clarity about his future influence on young people worldwide. He told his mother that his story would reach souls in countries he had never visited, inspiring teenagers to pursue holiness through their digital talents. His final coherent words included specific instructions about preserving his computer files and ensuring his website would continue operating after his death. He seemed to understand that his earthly work was complete, but his heavenly mission was just beginning. After Carlo's death on October 12, 2006, his family discovered files on his computer that they had never seen before. These documents contained detailed plans for expanding his Eucharistic miracle database, complete with research methodologies and organizational structures that seemed far too sophisticated for a 15-year-old to have developed. The files were dated with future timestamps, as if Carlo had been preparing for work he would never live to complete. Vatican digital forensics experts confirmed the authenticity of these mysterious documents, adding them to the growing collection of unexplainable evidence surrounding the young man's extraordinary spiritual gifts. The final mystery emerged during the preparation of Carlo's body for burial. Despite his terminal illness, his face displayed a peaceful expression that photographers described as luminous. More remarkably, his body showed none of the typical signs of the disease that had claimed his life. Medical examiners found his organs in remarkably good condition, as if his spiritual connection had somehow protected his physical form even as his earthly mission concluded. This preservation of his body would later play a crucial role in his beatification process, serving as physical evidence of the sanctity that had marked his brief but extraordinary life.